The Sigma BF, I think, does exactly what it sets out to achieve. I think it's going to find its target market. I think it's going to be a great commercial success for the company. And at the same time, I think it's going to disappoint a lot of the viewers of my audience. And for a lot of people who are thinking about getting this as a second camera for their shooting, or as a weekender or kind of personal shooting camera alongside their main system, I actually think it's a bad choice. I'm going to talk to you about why I've been shooting with this for dozens of hours, exclusively shooting with this camera for the last couple of weeks to really get to know it. I'm going to share all my findings with you today.
This review is brought to you by Wet n Wild, Steph and my brand new underwater portrait photography tutorial. Shooting in water adds an interesting creative challenge to both the posing and lighting of your portraits, and this fun course brings you along for the entire process. Check it out, it's in my link tree below.
So if you saw my preview video about this camera, I felt that I really needed to live with it for a couple of weeks, shooting with it every day to get my head around it. The main thing that I think sets this camera out from the others and is why a lot of people would buy it is the radically new design and interface. The way you control this camera is so different. It's as different as how it looks to other cameras. So if I just gave it a cursory couple of day thing, either you can get caught up in this is new equals exciting, that's a good thing, or you can get caught up in I can't find things, that's frustrating, and write it off. So I think I've achieved that over the last couple of weeks. I shot with it for portraits in Hong Kong, then I also did some stuff at the bird park. I took it to Australia, and in that time it was the only camera I took so that I had to use it every day. Now a lot of that was doing family stuff and just everyday travel and shooting at some functions that my parents were attending, as well as doing some landscape and that kind of thing with it and shooting spiders and whatnot. And I have to say, spending that time with it in my hand made all the difference for this review. What I see this camera as fundamentally changed over the last couple of weeks. Now I have to say, I think leaving my Nikons at home was absolutely the right way to go, because the interface is so new and so different. You can't rely on any muscle memory you have from any other camera. So at the beginning, I was not able to find things, getting lost in the menus, making wrong adjustments 50% of the time. But each day that I shot with it, it got better and better, it got smoother and smoother, and it became easier to shoot with. That's not to say that there aren't still some quirks, however. But before dissecting all of that now, I think it's worth talking about who this camera is likely to appeal to, who the potential buyers are, and then try and think about it from their point of view.
Now, whilst I don't tend to edit my images too much in review videos so you can see what they're really capable of, the portraits in this video have been run through Rebloom. Rebloom is an AI-powered portrait retoucher that is just amazing. It does a better job than I can. The retouches look so natural, and importantly to me, it doesn't mess up the skin texture of your models, which means that we can still use the sample images for this kind of a lens review. Rebloom is totally offline, you don't need an internet connection, and there's no per image processing charge. You buy it once and then you own it forever. Check out the details below.
Now, I've reviewed a lot of different cameras over the past 15 or so years, but I have to say, I think I was approaching this one in the wrong way. And I want to thank both Model Honey and a viewer named Tom, whose insights and opinions that they shared with me really helped me get a better, well, they helped me kind of dig deeper and go beyond my initial expectations. Tom commented, "A genius move by Sigma if you think about it. This makes both happy. YouTube influencers, because they can now make lots of controversial videos about all the features it lacks, as well as actual photographers who will enjoy the hell out of it because they don't want to just press a single button and let computational aids do all the work for them." but they want to create something special on their own instead while enjoying the process as well. If it would be a manual focus system only, it would be a great companion to my M system, but unfortunately it still has too many unnecessary distractions like autofocus and video for my taste. Interesting take. He followed up by saying, I didn't invest in the M system to act like a snob. I was literally forced to do so by manufacturers who are producing devices that feel more like a PlayStation than a photography tool. I really wish there would be a more affordable option, but there simply isn't. Now, without going too far into that or the personal insults, I can get that point of view. The idea of actual photographers versus influencers, also fair. And there is a tendency, and I'm sure I've thought about it this way too, that sometimes pared back we associate with less bells and whistles, getting back to what photography is all about, just the controls you need and not all the other stuff, a more pure shooting experience. Got all that. I think that's the perspective that a lot of people might have with this. On the flip side, when I showed it to Honey, she loved it because the interface was so clean, and essentially she said, these cameras like my Nikons that I use have so much writing on them, it's just confusing. There's so many buttons and she doesn't know where to start.
Oh, I like this one. So simple. Just 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so take a photo. Then you can change the ratio.
You know what? I like this one the most. It's so simple and then suitable for the people like me do not want to figure out most of the statics on the traditional camera. You know?
So that's interesting. So it's the clean interface and counterintuitive, the fact that she thinks the camera will do everything for her and will be a PlayStation that kind of she just has to click a button is what she wants from it. And this, I think, is the start of why I think some photographers are frustrated by the limitations of this camera. No EVF, no IBIS, lack of mounting points and accessories, those kind of things that we want in a more built-out system. And that's because you can essentially project onto this whatever you want. If you are looking for a pared back shooting experience, then you could see yourself getting that from this. But you could also put a manual focus lens onto literally any mirrorless camera, not go into video mode and get the fully pared back shooting experience that Leica shooters say that they want. But if what you're going for is, I want quick access to my shutter speed, ISO and aperture, I actually think this is less user-friendly than any Fuji, any Canon, any Sony, any Nikon, and Leica as well. Leica may be one of the best examples. Because on this, if you're using a lens that has the aperture ring, yes, you have quick access to that. But if you want to adjust your shutter speed or your ISO, you have to click into the menu, then click left or right to that menu item, then select it, maybe move it out of the auto mode into a precise setting, then rotate your dial, then click out of it. And then if you want to go to ISO, you then need to click over to your ISO. There's no quick menu like every other manufacturer has. There isn't a dedicated dial for those things. So yes, you can customize it to be what you want it to be to an extent, but I think this is more of a beautiful PlayStation than a pared back, pure shooting machine. Now, in terms of the body design, very beautiful, but just note that the sides are angled forward as well, kind of like a gold brick. So being a camera that doesn't have IBIS, mechanical IBIS, if you were shooting and trying to stabilize yourself, you can't just put the camera flat or you're going to be angling down towards the ground. So you need to actually lean it back and be right on one corner of the camera if you're going to try and do this. I realized this when I was trying to shoot at sunset in Australia using a fence post. It is maybe not something you'll come across, but it is something to keep in mind that the angular design means not everything is level, if that makes sense.
No matter what system you're using, really learning how to make the most of it, all of the different options and how you can customize it for your style of shooting is the best way to get the most out of your camera and lens combo. I have camera setup guides for Nikon, Sony, Fuji GFX, as well as Hasselblad and more coming. You can check them all out over at learn.mattgranger.com.
You know, when Nissan famously put the 1.8 litre instead of the 2.4 into the Ultima, it really didn't bother me because I wasn't a potential buyer of that car, I wasn't thinking about it, so I wasn't bothered in either way. It's the same when there's a new Micro Four Thirds camera or a Phase 1 camera come out. I'm not a potential buyer for those products, so it doesn't bother me. But when Nikon bring out a camera that I potentially would be the market for, if I'm disappointed or excited, you're likely to hear about it. Now that is probably obvious and goes without saying, right? But as a reviewer, it's a real risk that I run that when I look at a camera that I potentially could be interested in, I put my own expectations, excitement, or disappointments in, whereas I really should be thinking about who are the likely buyers for this if it isn't me, and are they likely to be satisfied with the features that it offers. In the case of the BF, I think I, and maybe a lot of you guys, were disappointed because we thought we're the potential target market for this camera, but then it leaves out features that we would want, like IBIS, a viewfinder, a hot shoe, more ergonomic body, better battery, interchangeable memory potentially. Those kind of things felt lacking. Because when you look just at the top line, an interchangeable lens, beautiful, stylish, full-frame camera, milled out of aluminium with a brand new interface and simple controls for under $2,000, that sounds kind of great if you do put any value on style. I mean, hell, it's less than a third of the price of the Q3, admittedly with a lens, but it's also 40% of a GFX 100 RF, or about what you might pay on the open market for an X100 APS-C camera. So it does kind of seem like it could be a great bargain if you have that kind of budget and you're the potential market for it. But the fact is, I don't think this is a camera for us. And when I say us, I mean, although I may be a useless influencer, I also think of myself as an actual photographer who's got a lot of shooting experience and the disposable cash to spend on style. I don't think it's for us. And in fact, when I look back at the interview I did with the Sigma marketing team about this camera at Japan when it was announced, it's kind of clear actually. I expected them to say it's for enthusiasts and professionals as a second body or whatever, but actually what they said was it's for people who are concerned with style, into photography, who want to, in his words, go to their friend's restaurant and take photos of the dishes on the table. Or people who are interested in style who want to use it for non-professional work. That's specifically who they're aiming at. And if you look at it from their point of view, this pared back design, they won't be projecting like Tom was, a refined, pure, old-fashioned shooting experience. They're likely to be projecting onto it like honey, a sleek, simple, glorious looking PlayStation of an experience where I can set my crop mode, set it to auto mode, set a color picture profile, and then share the images straight from the camera. So I've been shooting with it for a couple of weeks now. I really think I have a good handle on it. My perception on it has changed drastically over that time. So I want to revisit what I think are the unique things about this camera and the unique selling points, kind of why you might be considering it. So first of all, the styling. For me, and this is of course going to be personal, but for me, I think it's a hit. I think it's beautiful. I think it looks fantastic. And given their stated target market of fashionable, stylish people, that makes perfect sense that they nailed that. The next is about in the hand kind of ergonomics. And I have to say, for me personally, it's a miss. Whilst it looks beautiful and the thumb support is nice, for someone of my hand, and I tested this with a few different, adult men who, like my assistant and my dad and a few other people, who found it just doesn't feel good in the hand. It feels uncomfortable even with small lenses. And I think I found the reason. So I have to thank Honey again. When I handed it to her, she found it quite comfortable despite having smaller hands. And it comes down to, I think, the distance between this thumb support and the bottom corner. So for me, it's kind of putting it right at the top of that joint. Whereas for her, it got it right down in the meat of the thumb there, whatever that part's called, and it was quite comfortable for her. So if you have smaller hands, I think it's going to be more comfortable than if you have big hands. counterintuitively. The other point would be the strap mount. So as I said, it only has the one mounting point on here, kind of clearly saying that it's designed for a wrist strap, which at many times is fine, but when you go to want to adjust your phone or get money out when you're on the street, having it dangling there really isn't ideal. So when, for example, I was shooting with the Q3 in Europe, I actually went full tourist mode and went out and bought this camera strap, so then I could put it around myself and have the camera like this. I found that if the camera was in my bag, I was unlikely to stop and take nearly as many shots. If it was on my wrist, it would start to get uncomfortable, and in the bag it goes. Having it here, it's out of the way. My hands are free to fight off robbers or pay for things. And when I want to shoot, boom, we're good to go. But this doesn't have a mounting point on that side. So I tried to explore all the options to give it the benefit of the doubt. Got one of these double hook points here from Peak Design, then put a latch point on there, and then there you have 2 points. Great. But I found then sitting on my body, it's kind of jutting into me, and it was on a really uncomfortable angle. One of the viewers suggested mounting both straps on either side of this, so I did that as well. That essentially then has the camera hanging right around your neck like this, upside down, and there's no choice, right? It has to be hanging upside down, which kind of was comfortable enough to walk around, but then when you went to shoot, you're putting all the straps and stuff in your face. And I really didn't find that comfortable. So I didn't find a good carry solution for it. The other thing is, I didn't like the screen at all. Shots looked better on my computer than they did in the field, and I think we really have to acknowledge there's more reasons to have an EVF than just that's what we're used to. With a camera that has no dynamic IBIS, having a third point of stabilization to push it against your forehead can really help you get a more stable shot. You can't do that on this, and I found high shots, low shots, or shooting when there was backlighting or just really bright sun, I found the screen difficult to view. More difficult than an iPhone in the same situation. So all those issues could be fixed if there's third-party grips come out and you get a screen protector, but I'm testing it as is, and I would wonder that if you put a bigger grip on it, does that then kill the design, which is, after all, the main selling point? And the final point that may be even more radical than the design is the interface. It is completely new. And for me, and I think for kind of people who have a long shooting experience, I think it's also not ideal. As my assistant pointed out, you have a muscle memory no matter what brand you use, and we've probably all shot with Canon, Nikon, Sony in the past, and Fuji and others. This is so new that there's no muscle memory. Even after 2 weeks of shooting with it, I started to get used to it from, at the start not being able to find things and messing up what I was trying to do most of the time. It got less and less and less, but it was still happening, and it's still a lot more clicks to go where you need to go. And I think if you were going to shoot this as a second camera on a serious job, the difference between your other camera system and this one are just too much. You would find it so confusing going from one camera to the other. Even I think for most people using this as an after hours or weekend personal shooter, it's so different. I would, as a Nikon shooter, go for Sony, Fuji, Canon, any of them as my second system to other than this because of that muscle memory issue. Having said that, it's perfect for the target market. If you want it to do most of the things, you're going to go in, choose your aspect ratio, choose the picture profile, then leave it in auto and share the images straight out of camera. Having a pared back minimal interface that takes some work to get into the menus is fine because you're probably not going into the menus very much at all. So in summary, yes, I think this is a super stylish PlayStation for people with money who appreciate design, who are stylish, fashionable, who want to take photos of their food, which as somewhere between Tom, a annoying influencer and an actual photographer, saying that is the target market might sound like a diss, but it's not. That's a huge part of the market. It's a valid market. It just maybe not you and I. At the end of the day, I think that's what it comes down to. What are you going to use it for, and what are your expectations for it? Let me know if you have a pre-order in, what you think about it after all the content you've viewed. Leave me a comment, hairless Sasquatch, if you're actually still watching at this point in the video. If you haven't already subscribed, and I'll see you soon.